Any additions to the agenda? If none, would someone move to approve the agenda? All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. You have minutes from November and December meetings of regular council and in camera. If you've had a chance to review those, no errors or omissions, will someone move the acceptance of those?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 25th, regular council meeting 2015, also the in-camera meeting of November 25th, 2015, December 16th, 2015, regular council meeting, December 16th, 2015, in-camera meeting, and the January 13th, 2016 regular council meeting, and the January 13th, 2016 in-camera meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for those? All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. We have some public hearings and rezoning. Brad, I'm going to turn the floor over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. The first land use bylaw amendment that's here on a public hearing is for Rockville Carriers Limited in Rockville. This is the request of the owner, Mr. Wentworth Porter. He owns a property at the Town Point Wharf, and he has an existing lobster holding facility. He also owns land to the west of that property. He's requested a portion of that lands to the west to be rezoned to marine industrial in order to obtain a development permit for a new lobster holding facility. This was reviewed by the Planning Advisory Committee. It met all of our requirements. He obtained an approval from the Provincial Department of Transportation and Infrastructure renewal for an access approval for a new access off the Town Point Road down to his proposed site where he plans to build his building. The intention is to build in fairly close proximity to his existing facility in order to both share the amenities and to conduct business between the two buildings, and also for access for vehicles to both sites. The existing approach road or the access road, the Town Point Road, is quite steep, especially where he has to descend down the hill to the wharf and make an immediate sharp right turn. And that's difficult with trucks, especially in the wintertime. So this new access road from the Town Point Road will provide a much safer and more expeditious way to get to his properties. The newspaper notice of this public hearing was published in the January 19th and January 12th Vanguards, as per the Municipal Government Act requirements. The Planning Advisory Committee had reviewed this application, and it does meet all of the requirements of our municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, and the recommendation was forwarded to for council to approve this amendment. And I'll entertain any questions, but it's other than that, it's a very straightforward land use bylaw amendment.
You've received no correspondence?
No, the office, the development district planning office didn't receive any. I did receive one telephone call from an individual who wondered why they received a notice. There is a requirement in our policies that we give a written notice to all the people within 1,000 feet of the property that's being rezoned. And one of the recipients of the letter wondered why they received the letter, and it was just a simple explanation as to why they received the letter. And that was the only correspondence I had. I didn't receive any notification from the municipal office that any inquiries had come in on it.
Thank you, Brad. Council, what's the wishes of council on this recommendation?
I'll move that the municipality of Yarmouth amend the land use bylaw to rezone a portion of the property of Rockville Carriers Limited, PID 901778890, Town Point Road, Chabot, from rural development to marine industrial, is put forward in Brad's report this evening.
Moved and seconded, gentlemen. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. And we'll move on to 5.1.2. Mr. Fulton.
The second amendment are small housekeeping amendments to the bylaw. The first is when the revised bylaw was adopted by council in 2013, the former zoning in all of the areas was brought forward and carried forward to the new bylaw. In the former bylaw, there was a mistaken identity on one of the properties in Port Maitland, and it was the property where the small cenotaph is situated on Highway 1. That property was erroneously zoned commercial, and it was actually the property to the north. So this housekeeping amendment simply corrects that incorrect zoning designation on the property. The second minor housekeeping amendment is to expand the list of permitted uses in the airport noise restriction zone for clarity. That's the zone as you're driving down the airport stretch, the land on the east where the car dealerships are and the motorsport auto repair property is. That area in the land use bylaw, there are any commercial and light industrial uses are permitted in that area. However, there was some question, the development officer questioned the clarity of that, and for clarity purposes, we amend the bylaw to include all of the lists in all of the permitted uses in the general commercial zone. That simply lays out all of the different uses in detail. So it's just for clarity for anyone who's proposing uses in that area. It's more clear as to what commercial uses. Instead of simply saying commercial uses, it lists all the various commercial uses. So those are two small housekeeping amendments.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that, I'm going to make two motions here, I move that we adjust the land use bylaw Schedule B to correct the zoning on the PIDs. That's my first motion.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My second motion is to expand the list of permitted uses for the airport noise reduction zone, ANR zone, for clarity.
Do we have a seconder for that?
No second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Question being called, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Mr. Fulton, do you mind, if no objections to council, will move ahead to 8.1.71, public hearing on development agreement with Housing Nova Scotia. Did you have anything to?
Well,
Anyway, I'm not sure why, John or you, but we may need you. I don't know.
I'm certainly
Okay.
prepared to speak to that, Mr. Warden. As you're probably all aware, the Housing Nova Scotia is proposing to convert the former Hedman Residential Centre into 9 residential units. Our planning strategy and land use bylaw require a development agreement for that, for any residential uses more than 4 units. So Housing Nova Scotia did apply to the municipality requesting a development agreement. That process has gone forward. We've drafted the development agreement. I've reviewed it with the municipal solicitor. Housing Nova Scotia has reviewed it. The final agreement, in agreement with both parties, has been reached. A public information meeting was held by the Planning Advisory Committee last Tuesday or the Tuesday before? Thank you very much. And there was 2 or 3 members of the public that came to that meeting, and 2 representatives from Housing Nova Scotia came, made a short presentation, and the next step in the process for approving the development agreement is for council to set a public hearing date. The Housing Nova Scotia officials have come to the municipality and have requested the process to be expedited as much as possible. They have financial commitments to their fiscal year, which is March 31st, 2016. And in order to allot funds and to designate the project, they asked for the municipality to proceed with all haste with the development agreement. It's a marvelous project. It meets and exceeds all of council's priorities for housing in the Hebron area. It not only provides you know, a multiple unit residence, but they're also going to be able to be barrier free. They're designed also for high energy efficiency. They're being built to the highest energy efficient standards. Housing Nova Scotia is excited about the project and is looking forward to you know, maintaining them into the future. There's also where it's a large lot, there's several acres of land. They've also indicated in the future they may very well also at some point in the future construct additional residential units, either single unit dwellings or duplexes or a townhouse development. If that takes place, that would require an amendment to this development agreement. They're aware of that. That's one of the clauses in the development agreement. So I think in this case, you know, it's incumbent upon council to support them in every way and to set a date for a public hearing. I would suggest the next meeting of council would be an appropriate date for a public hearing on the development agreement.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Hearing that, I move that we, council holds a public hearing for the development agreement with Housing Nova Scotia on February 24th, 2016.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor.
My one question, if I may, Mr. Chair, I guess is to Brad. Does that meet the time requirements? Because
Yes.
February is a short month and
Yes.
so on.
Yeah.
Still meets all the
Yeah,
requirements.
we'll have to, of course, as in land use bylaw amendments, there's the requirement for 2 Vanguard notices, the first of which has to appear a full 2 weeks before the hearing. I've prepared all those notices, so it's a very simple
move on
matter
anyway.
to get that, to get those notices in time. We have lots of time to get that done.
Okay, any further discussion, gentlemen? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, motion carried. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now go back up to Business Horizon. 6.1, I think probably council will be talking to our 2 partners in municipal joining councils and see if they want to join us in this and move forward with the legacy project for 2017. Is there any upcoming events in your communities that you want to make mention of here tonight? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the first time ever since we've had this on the agenda, I have none, and I think it's because of the cold weather has finally set in. However, coming up in March, I'm sure we're going to be having a lot out in the District 1 area, which includes Carlton, Kemp, Brazil Lake, and Lake Vaughan areas. Unfortunately, like I said, there's not a lot going on this month. However, I'm sure it's going to ramp up for the summer season.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, you have your November development report in December. Have you had a chance to review those? If so, we need a motion to approve those development reports. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve the November and December development reports.
Do we have a seconder for that? Any discussion? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. 7.3 is a request for destruction of files, administration standard, I think 7 years, is it? Yes, for anything 7 years or older. So someone moving that, I think? Oh, Councillor Ant, did you have a question or you move? Okay. Okay, move. Do we have a seconder? Okay, any further discussion, gentlemen? Go ahead.
I mean,
Yep.
Mr. Chair, as you're well aware, I sit on the RFB board, and I noticed in the destruction of files, there was 2 or 3 files way back in 2002 pertaining to the RFB. I was wondering, before the files are destroyed, could I review those just for curiosity more than anything else? When is the plan to get rid of them? I'm going away on Friday. Oh dear, I said on waste check, please don't go there. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Question.
Question being called, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you. Committee reports, you have your committee reports in front of you. If anything you want highlighted from any of the committee members? If not, we'll move down to, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Sorry, I was a little bit slow on the button. I just wanted to advise everyone that the YASTA meeting that was scheduled for last Tuesday afternoon had been postponed till this Tuesday, which unfortunately I was unable to make. However, in due process, I'll certainly make sure that I forward all the minutes and all the agenda items to council at our next regular council meeting. Also, there was a planning advisory committee meeting that evening, last Tuesday evening, and the weather was quite bad. I'd just like to ask any councilors if they know that they cannot make it, try to give us a little bit more lead time to let us know that you're not going to be there, because there was some people that did come out there. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum to do we didn't have a quorum to do our regular business. However, we, under the Municipal Government Act, we were able to still hold the public information session on Housing Nova Scotia, which I was glad to make sure that that was done. And obviously, from that committee meeting, we forwarded it tonight that we enter in a development agreement with the Housing Authority. I'm still glad that that was able to go forward without a quorum. It's very important, I think, that all council members forward their regrets in as much advance notice as possible.
Thank you. I sat as an alternate, and I usually, if I know someone's not going to make it, I will attend, but I didn't know anybody wasn't going to. I think I got a letter later from Rick. I could have rearranged my schedule to been there. I thought you had a quorum, or I would have filled in for someone, so I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, all right.
Since we're talking about quorums on committees, I guess this question would be directed through you, Mr. Chair, to the CAO. Is it possible to possibly change the amount of alternates that we sit on a committee like that, a PAC committee, something like that? Is there a policy or something like that council has? Or is that something that we could add or give some thought to and come back with? Like PAC is one of them I can think of as very, not that any other committee is less important than the other, but also YASTA would be another one. But I believe through YASTA you would have to change the bylaws on that to have alternates sit on that. However, since a PAC is a council committee with no other municipalities involved, is that possible? We could add possibly another alternate to try to alleviate that position?
I believe you're correct in that YASTA is a different body,
Yeah.
and whatever their bylaws call for, the agreement formulating that. However, on the Planning Advisory Committee is a standing committee of council. So we could, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are there 3 council members or 4 on?
There's 4 council members, 3 members of the public.
And are the others not alternates, or?
The warden is an alternate right now. We have 1 alternate. I do know that there was an email sent out earlier to the Warden Goodwin. However, I don't think he got that email in time. It was quite late that he received that, because Rick, we found out he had a touch of pneumonia. And I personally wasn't feeling that well that evening either. And then I got a call from one of the resident members of the committee wondering if it was still going on. I said, as far as I know it is. He says, well, it's up to you to cancel. I said, as far as I know, there's going to be enough members there.
Certainly, council can appoint as many alternates, I think, as they wish for a municipal committee.
All right. With that said, could I'm requesting that we have that added.
Only Maria.
Pardon me?
We only do have Warden Goodwin as an alternate at this time.
All right. Then I'm requesting that we could possibly move this agenda item to the next regular council meeting
Or you could make a
meeting.
motion to appoint some alternates right now.
Yeah, actually we are. That's right.
We're in council here. I mean, that's more of a housekeeping item. If you're finding difficulty reaching quorums and you wish to deal with it now.
No, I think what I should do is chair first to see if there's, we have bylaws that you cannot miss so many meetings in a year and stuff like that. We've got to make sure that before we go forward with that our committee members and from the public are there. And obviously we keep lists of ongoing, and I advertise from time to time for public members for sitting on committees. Maybe I should ask to see the attendance records or go back in the attendance records and see if that isn't a more prudent way to go. Yeah, I think that's my preference for the night, and if I see anything, or I might ask to have this agenda item to the next committee of the whole meeting
Okay.
for a little bit more discussion, or a recommendation.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm a little out of the loop. The Lake George Watershed Advisory, I wasn't here to the committee of the whole meeting, and CAO from the town, Ken Langell, and Dave Ernst was in, talking about some changes to the regulations. They were going to be having a public meeting to discuss those? Has
Yes.
that date been set? Do you know?
No, but we were going to be made aware of it in our residents. It would be a public meeting, and we definitely will know the date
Okay.
and get the sense of what our residents feel about these proposed changes.
Okay, because I have a couple
Yeah.
issues on that.
Yes.
And my last question, if I may, Mr. Chair, through you to Ken, at one of our last meetings, we were going to have you guys were going to set up a meeting with the fire chief. Can I ask, did that ever take place? Okay. Okay. That's all.
Okay. Moving down to 9, committee of the whole recommendations. Councillor?
Yes, I'll move. We have a number of capital items that we want to prioritize, and make a motion that Municipality District of Yarmouth have 2 A category capital projects prioritized, put in priority. 1 would be the airport, and 2 would be the ferry terminal. Those are both transportation items and are critically important to the region. Recognizing that the Mariners Center project would sort of fall in a category B, as a category B project that we'd still want to certainly support and work with our partner municipalities, but it would be submitted separately from the transportation infrastructure type category A capital priorities.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Ken.
Yeah, just for clarifications, it would be in that order as well, correct? The airport is number 1 priority. The ferry terminal number 2, considering that it could be a few years down the road, but the airport is immediate.
Any further discussion, gentlemen? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried. I just want to check with Liz. Was there, that was the only recommendation from committee of the whole? Okay, adjournment is in order. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a seconder? All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. I think that's a record.